Welcome to Primetime, Mitch. I've just been to see The First Omen. Gonna give my thoughts on it now. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen it and you're thinking of seeing it, probably switch off, stick this in the watch it later, and then check out my thoughts on it once you've seen the movie. Let's go. So I wasn't immediately thinking about watching this movie. It's sort of a take it or leave it thing for me. I really love the 1976 original Omen, but at the same time, I'm not a big fan of most reboots that are coming out recently. So I wasn't itching to watch it, but I did see a lot of good reviews, so I thought that was a good enough reason to go and see it so I can give my thoughts on it. It starts off with a really nice sort of grainy throwback shot of the trees in the churchyard, and I sort of looked at it and I was thinking, I kind of already from that first shot I may like this movie. And it does seem to be, with the score as well, particularly at the start, it does seem to have that 70s vibe, so I was sort of on board it from the beginning. Didn't know much about the cast in this, only that Bill Nighy was in it, because it's very unusual casting, because Bill Nighy is so well known in our country, particularly for comedies and things like that, and sort of dramas. For him to be in sort of what I believe to be quite a big horror movie, and certainly part of such a big franchise, was quite a surprise. So I was quite happy to see him and see how he did in this. We see Ralph Ineson from the start, who is actually known for being in The Office, the British version of The Office. So again, it was another unusual casting, but I think when you do these kind of movies and you have these priests and everything, I think that British-Irish sort of core helps, and he played the part really well. He has got such a ridiculously deep voice. I don't know where that comes from. And I didn't know anybody going forward, so I'll sort of cross that bridge when I come to it. But yeah, I liked the opening shots of this movie. I liked how sinister that churchyard looked, and I liked how old school it felt. Of course, you get a very similar fate that we've seen in the other movies, befalling Father Harris at the start. Subtly done, with a bit of a creepy smile at the end. I quite liked that. It was a decent setup for the movie, I thought. I wasn't sort of offended by anything in terms of modern adaptation at this point. We go to Rome, and we got our first appearance of Nell Tiger-Free, who is playing Margaret, who is the protagonist of this movie. I don't mind the Rome setting. I know that the original obviously was sort of more real world as we are used to. I did feel like a lot of this movie was sort of centered around like a hallucination sort of thing, and it was almost like a dream, and there was a lot of sequences where it was very close up. I felt like the movie got more modern as it went on. I didn't see, my partner said as well, she didn't see enough long shots. She wanted, when she saw the start, she wanted to see more old school shots, because this is obviously, spoiler alert, this is a prequel to the original Omen. And I don't think sometimes that this movie realizes that sometimes. I mean, I'm pretty sure, and again, this is something that Amy is on point with. I think the Boney M song that they're listening to in that club is about 5 years premature. So if I'm wrong, please drop something in the comments and tell me, but I need to find these things out. But I have had a look, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I need to do more research, but save me the job if you can. I also think the club had a bit of a modern feel. It felt more like a 80s or 90s rave than a 70s disco. So far, I'm still into it. I'm not getting bored or anything. And obviously we get Bill Nighy comes into it, and he's pretty much just playing Bill Nighy, really, but he does have sort of a sinister sort of tone. He's smiling, he's very affectionate, he's very fatherly to Margaret, but you get the feeling there's something not quite right about why she's there. I was already under the impression that the young girl, Carlita, was not going to be the one to produce the Antichrist. I kind of got that right from the start. When Sylvia sort of hugs Margaret and holds on to her like she's very important to their cause, I kind of got it then, really. And that had even come from the beginning as well. When Father Harris said she'd be in her teens now, you knew this young girl wasn't the one that was in their eye line for this horrific ritual. There's some really gnarly scenes. Some of the birth scenes are quite disturbing, to say the least. I don't know. I try to really put this against the original if it's going to be so inextricably linked to the first one. So I did try and put it alongside it. I know it's different eras. I didn't feel a lot of the Omen vibe from this movie. I got like a more modern exorcism sort of feel to it. So I get that this is made in a different era, but I think if they were going to make a prequel to that classic original, it needed to have more of an Omen feel to it, and I wasn't really feeling it as much as I would have liked. I think some of the performances are very good. I think Nell Tiger-Free is excellent in this. She really puts her all into it. You can tell that there were a lot of very difficult scenes to film there, particularly the possession sort of scene towards the end outside of the car. I didn't really like the way that they disposed of Paolo. I think the way that was set up, I don't know where the wall came from. I also don't understand why anybody in the right mind who is over a certain age would try and pull somebody out of that situation. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And even though it gave you that horrific shot of her holding onto him and everyone screaming, I just think that was done for that effect. I don't think it really was rational to do that kind of thing. Maybe you think irrationally in that situation, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure 99 people out of 100 would not have done what she did in that situation. I'm also not absolutely convinced by his involvement in it. I didn't really get any satisfaction from that. It wasn't like a wow moment when you realised he was involved. There are some really sinister and chilling scenes and shots in this movie. I don't want to say it's a recreation, but it's not, because it's a prequel to it. But it is a recreation. The death of the nanny in the original, where she hangs herself and then goes through the window and says it's all for you. I actually think that scene was better because it's made better by Lee Remick's amazing expression when she sees it happening. But it is a nice scene, and obviously have the added fire. So that was good. I quite enjoyed that little throwback. I like the fact that seems to be, that is now sort of a recurring theme. That's how they sort of sacrifice themselves. And what I will say is I didn't not enjoy watching it. I was okay with it. I guess I'm just a little old-fashioned. I really love that original Omen. I'm not saying they were going to make something that was on par with that, but I just wanted the feeling of the Omen. I wasn't getting the feeling. Throughout, I was feeling like I was watching a modern horror. There was so many close-up shots, so many fever dream scenes, quite a lot of gore. One thing I will say is there isn't a whole lot of CGI, so that was a big positive. Yay for practical effects. Or at least I don't think they were CGI anyway, but I guess if you don't know it, they're doing it right. I think the one thing that me and Amy agreed on more than anything was, and this was an immediate thought, this wasn't an afterthought when we were reviewing it, but I really wish they hadn't put the last scene in saying, oh, they've named your son, it's Damien. We knew. Almost as a wrestling fan, I popped when I saw Gregory Peck's photograph, and I was like, oh, this is a good way to finish it. It's a nice way to bring it to the first one. And they could have closed it off there, because even if you've not watched The Omen, the original, you can go and watch the original for the first time and watch that story, and you'll find out who Damien is. You don't need that, oh, by the way, it's Damien. I was more pleased with seeing the photograph of Robert Thorne than I was of him saying the name at the end. It was almost a bit of a cheap scene that didn't need to be there. We didn't need to see that. And of course, if they're setting up for the twin girl, we don't need to see them living in the mountains and the snow. We can find that out in whatever movie they have coming up next. I just feel like that scene was put in for really a quite dilute effect. I think the first scene of the photograph in the car and the passing the child on and the whole hint of the original movie was enough. That was far more subtle, and that should have been the final scene of the film. I was a little disappointed they threw that in at the end. The audiences aren't that stupid. Even if you haven't seen it, it wasn't needed. Overall, I didn't hate the first Omen at all. I might have been a bit critical throughout this. I was expecting to like it more, I will say that, but it is one of the better modern horrors that I've watched. I would give it probably a 6.5. I think it was okay. It was good. There was some really hard work went into it, some good performances, some quite visceral scenes in there, and they did loop it back round nicely to the original, and they have left it open for something potential with the girl. But overall, I wanted a little bit more, and it didn't deliver that for me, but it wasn't bad, and I would urge you to see it. Certainly worthy of a place in the timeline, I think, if not a patch on the original. Thank you guys. If you enjoyed this review and you've got some comments on it, if you really loved it or you really hated it, I'd love to hear about it. Please drop those comments below. Please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to find out what I'm doing on a weekly basis with regards to content and videos. I've got a lot more movies and collaborations lined up in the future. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. I know I've been away a while at WrestleMania, but it's nice to come back, and it's nice to see the videos getting some views and getting some comments and interactions whilst I was gone on that little hiatus. Have a good day, guys. Mitch Cassidy out.